finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Today's guest will blow your mind.
Tim's excited he's speaking because he can barely stand it to introduce them.
He knows what it is to live life to the absolute fullest. He knows what it is to live life down to the thousandth of a second. And yet, this is all after, by his mid-30s, he had 3 life-threatening medical emergencies. That's all we're going to say. We'll get to the rest of the show later, but first, May has a message from our sponsor.
Yeah, our sponsor this week, all this month, is, you guessed it, Locum Story. They're a great sponsor for us. We are thankful to them, and we're reading their amazing poetry again. One job, two job. All right, here we go. One job, two jobs. Red blob, no job. Elective doc, emergency doc. Some in overstock, some in out of stock. This doc is too abused. This doc is underused. This doc can't get sick. Say, let's try a brand new trick. For all the docs about to cry, here's an idea you can try. Look into a locum tenens assignment. A really great option. You might find it. Don't forget, locums pays much better, and you can find assignments in any type of weather. With all this new info trapped up in your thinker, go to financialresidency.com/locum story and use your mouse to tinker. It's here you'll find the unbiased answers you're after, so you can decide if locum tenens is your next chapter.
Outstanding. Now on with the show.
Well, we are wildly excited and privileged about today's
Tim's totally
guest.
peeking.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna have to turn down the fanboy-o-meter. We have the most recently minted world top Fuel Dragster champion, Steve Torrence, with us today. And he's going to tell us some really interesting things about the experiences that he's gone through in life, both medically and not. So without any further ado, Steve, welcome, and thank you for being here. And most importantly, congratulations on your 4th World Championship.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. I'm super excited about it. And we were talking a little bit earlier before we got going here that what's going on and what you guys do. And I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Hey, our pleasure. Literally excited.
So for our non-gearhead friends, tell us what it is like to be strapped to an 11,000 horsepower car that weighs about 2,000 pounds and goes 0 to 350 miles an hour in under 4 seconds.
So wait a minute, you have friends that are not gearheads?
Well, we do work in the medical community, unfortunately.
I mean, you've got to educate these friends so that they know.
Yes.
So, Top Fuel Dragsters, the quickest accelerating vehicle in the world. The only thing that ever accelerates straight line acceleration quicker would be the space shuttle, and we don't have that anymore. So step on the gas. It's 3.3 to 3.5 Gs of acceleration immediately. 2 seconds into the run, where we're 330 feet down the track, acceleration is 5.6, 5.7 Gs, getting really close to 6 Gs. The further you go, the harder it pulls, all the way till half track. We now race. Back in 2008, we shortened the surface from 1,320 feet, which is a quarter of a mile, to 1,000 foot. The reason for doing so was to give us 320 feet more stopping distance, because some of the facilities that we go race at are not long enough to stop. So the times that we were running back then would be in the 4s. Now we're sub 4 seconds in 3.6, 3.7 seconds. In an eighth of a mile, 660 feet, we will be traveling in excess of 290 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds. We will cover the last 340 feet of the racetrack in 0.7 seconds. So you gain 290 to 295, maybe 297 miles an hour in less than 3 seconds. And then in the last 3/4 of a second, you'll gain another 40 miles an hour and travel 340 feet.
Okay, you could see me. I'm like cringing here. I'm about to wet my pants because the only thing close to, well, except when I'm riding with my husband in the Corvette on these back roads we live in, the only thing close I've been to in that would be what's that ride we did at Sandusky? Top Fuel Dragster.
Top Thrill Dragster.
Top Thrill Dragster.
But it only right, but it only went from 0 to 104 seconds.
Okay, and that I cried and almost wet my pants on, and now I'm like, no, I'm not doing that again. And of course, Tim and our son Jake went on that thing over and over and over and over. But
I've actually ridden that thing, and it's so much fun. Except for I'm scared of heights, so I love the taking off.
Right,
and then when it went up, I was like, "This is a bad idea."
It shoots you up. I know, and then you get weightless, and you think you're gonna fly out of that thing and die. And I'm like, "Where's my parachute? I need my parachute."
Well, so
I want to know. Okay, I don't know what Tim's gonna ask, but already I'm like thinking, how do you prepare for that? Like when you get into this. So our son, who's in the Air Force and is watching all these military videos on pulling G's because his goal is to be a fighter pilot. Do you guys train and do G-force exercises and things like that to get your body to prepare? Because I know there's the whole blackout thing. I have tons of questions about that.
It's not sustained. It's only for a couple seconds, so you don't really have to do any type of G training for that. But we do. You do need to be in pretty decent shape. I mean, you see some of the guys that are in better shape than others. I'm definitely not as fit as Antron Brown, but I'm able to get by. I get the question asked all the time. Why are you guys so out of breath at the end of the run? Do you not breathe? Do you not? What's going on in there? And honestly, I couldn't tell you. I don't know if I breathe or not for the 4 seconds of the run of if you just hold your breath and drive or if what you do. A couple years ago, I wore a heart rate monitor, and I never did really pay attention to what it did during the run. I was trying to control my heart rate up until the point of staging the car and launching at the tree to just basically like shooting long range. You need to control your heart rate, slow it down, and you're more calm and focused to have a better reaction time. But I don't know what it would do during the run. It would probably be somewhere 160, 165, I would think. I mean, you get out of the car at the end and you feel like you've jogged the whole way.
Wow. So have they done any kind of medical data studies on what happens to your body, your heart rate, rest, anything like that? Do you know? I'm just curious.
I would start the car. I don't know if anyone has really done many studies, but I would start the car and I would be in the mid 60s. And then by the time I staged the car, I would be around 115, just from being excited and getting ready and kind of getting nervous. But yeah, if I was over 115, I usually was slower for my reaction time.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just a little too much of the sort of adrenaline dump, I guess, before launch. So when my understanding in Top Fuel, so when you launch, you have your hand on a handbrake, correct? And then it's like, go on yellow, whack the throttle, let go of the handbrake, hand goes back to the wheel. Am I correct?
Spot on. So it's a direct drive car. There's no neutral. The only neutral is to push the clutch in. There's only one gear. It's a 320 rear end gear. It's a 6-disc clutch, 10.5-inch disc clutch. And so if you're sitting in the car, there's a clutch pedal. Where your normal brake pedal would be is just a dead pedal. And then there's the gas pedal. So the only brake you have is the handbrake. You drive the car just exactly like a normal car. When they start it up, I have my foot on the clutch. The guys start the car. I step off the clutch, let off the brake, and the car will roll forward on its own to do the burnout.
Wow.
And we set the air gap on the clutch where it's so loose that you can hold the brake on the car with your foot off of the clutch, and the car will just sit there and idle. So that's how we stage the car, is at a dead idle with your hand on the brake, and you'll just bump in, and illuminate the stage bulbs. When the yellow lights come on, your foot is off of the clutch, and you brace yourself with that dead pedal in the middle with your left leg. And then so you have your hand on the brake, your right foot's on the gas, but not pushing it until the lights come on. And that's a simultaneous motion, on the gas, off the brake, and grabbing the steering wheel at the same time.
Wow. and then
I'll be grabbing the steering wheel really hard.
Yeah. Well, and then of
You
course
do.
and then it's hope to God it doesn't blow up, because it is literally a controlled bomb. Which is interesting. I remember reading an article about this several years ago. This is back when you guys were only making like 7,000 horsepower instead of 11,000 horsepower. And they talked about fuel usage and how it's basically like 2 or 3 shower heads turned on full blast with like really good water pressure is how quickly these consume fuel during a run.
So now it's more like a fire hose. And and it will at a complete idle. A top fuel car idles around 2,500 RPM, and it'll burn a gallon of nitro in 12 seconds.
Oh.
At idle?
At idle.
And how much? I don't know if I want to ask. I remember Clark and one of your PR guys invited us back and gave us some sodas when my son was quite young, and ended up meeting your mother and asking her a little bit about this. And she's like, you know how expensive it is to run this car? And that was when your dad just started running, and she's like, there will be no more top fuel cars in this family. And it was just great. So how much is a gallon of nitromethane?
It depends. I don't know. 42-gallon drum right now is somewhere in the $1,200 to $1,500 range. So it's much cheaper than whiskey. If you were buying whiskey by the gallon, I mean, it would still.
There you go. There you go.
That's
It
right.
totally justifies it. I love it.
There's always something more expensive.
Exactly.
I used to think that my downhill skiing habit was expensive until I started skydiving, and I was like, wow, I only spent $200 today skydiving, when skiing would have only been $100.
Or golf, depending where you're at, right?
Yeah.
That can be insane.
I would
too.
happily pay double price to not jump out of the airplane.
Yeah, we hear that a lot.
It's really interesting. So again, wildly successful. You were a top alcohol champion, as I understand, which is
It just sounds wrong. Yeah, top alcohol
not
champion.
drinking whiskey. These cars run on a little bit of methanol, and then plus nitromethane. So the class below, the racing class below top fuel, would be top alcohol, which they'd run purely on alcohol. And so there's many different classes like there is in racing. And so this stuff doesn't happen by accident. Success doesn't happen by accident. And you've had some challenges in life, as particularly medical challenges. So let's move into that world. Tell us about what happened to you as really a young man.
So I was, I've always been pretty healthy growing up. I had no problems and really no issues that to speak of, other than just the cold every now and then. But when I was 17 years old, it was my second week of high school, started gaining a lot of weight, like really quickly, and just water weight, just bloated, and felt bad, and was diagnosed with walking pneumonia and nephrotic syndrome and multiple things. Just, I think they were diagnosing symptoms. Ended up going to the hospital this has been 21 years ago now, but going to the hospital and staying overnight, and I think they were giving me Lasix to get rid of the water weight, and I lost 14 pounds in one night.
Whew.
I mean, I had water everywhere. Go home that next day, end up going back to the hospital. I think that same night, or that night, with just terrible chest pain. My chest was hurting. I was coughing, and every time I did, fluid would come out, and I had blood clots in my lungs. And so stayed in the hospital. Immediately went to ICU. Started, I guess it would be like a heparin drip or something back then. They did some scans, and at that, 20 years ago, the hospital in Longview, Texas, was probably not the premier facility to go to. And these guys were entertaining. There was a suspicious mass in my chest. We need to go in and biopsy it. Their method of getting to it was probably just cut me open in the middle. And so we searched for a hospital to go to. I was trying to go to MD Anderson, Baylor, or St. Jude's or St. Luke's, I think. St. Luke's in Memphis. Is that correct?
I
You
do
guys-
not know. I don't know. Do you, Tim? No.
But ended up getting into Baylor and go up there, and have been in the hospital at home for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and really nothing's going on. I get to Baylor, and day one, this surgeon comes in, says, we're going to do some scans. We're going to go in and do a biopsy. They went through the base of my neck, just above, just in between my collarbone. The tumor in my chest was the size of a softball, directly in between my lungs, right above my heart. And I remember, you're 17, so you're kind of taking everything in, and I've always been very observant, and I looked at the guy's hands, and his fingers were the biggest fingers I've ever seen. They looked like bananas hanging off the end of a catcher's mitt. And I said, so who's going to do this, and how are you going to do it? And he goes, well, I am. And I said, with those fingers?
I love it.
And that day, they came in and they said, okay, well, you got cancer, and this is what we're going to do. And had a routine, a regimen, an idea of what they were going to do. They said, it's inoperable. We're going to treat you with chemo and radiation. And at that point in my life, the only funerals of family or friends or anything that I'd been to, they all died from cancer. So immediately I'm thinking, well, this is it. You get cancer, you die. I didn't know anybody that had gotten cancer and didn't. And so it was very difficult, but I felt like I had to be stoic. I had to be the strong one for my family and go through it. And so I got diagnosed with cancer on my best friend's birthday, September the 22nd, 2000. And I stayed in there through Thanksgiving and got out of the hospital just before Christmas. And I believe that I did 3 chemo treatments, and had so many complications with my lungs. Both lungs collapsed twice. I had my left lung collapsed the first time. They inserted a chest tube, and so I've had 8 of those, and I know now that you want more and more sedatives every time they put them in. So by the last ones, I was pretty good at it, but the first one went in and probably stayed a couple days, and they pulled it out, and it went down that night. So they had to come in and put another one in, and you guys know better than I do. You can't go in that same hole, so you got to cut another one and poke in. And what they told me was the chemo that I took was, I don't know what the names are, but it was ABVD. Adriamycin, bleomycin, vinblastine, or something.
Very
and one
good.
more.
Yeah, really
Yep,
good,
yep.
actually.
And they got that was my left lung. And I had a doctor, and his name, it's Dr. Motter. And he was like Rambo. He was a pretty tough guy. And he came in, and they pulled the second tube out. And I remember him asking me, he goes, "Well, I'm going to have to sew this hole up. Do you want me to deaden it, or do you want me to just go ahead and sew it up? It's only going to be a few stitches." And I said, "Well, I mean, we got plenty of time. Why don't you just go ahead and deaden it?" And then he goes to doing his stuff, and he goes, "Okay, I'm done." And I thought, man, that hurt. And he goes, "Well, I didn't deaden it. I just wanted to know what you would say." And so
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And so I ended up loving that guy for that, because I was like, well, I mean, heck, that's something I would have done. And I think that all took place after the first chemo treatment, and I believe that I did one or maybe two more, and as bad as I felt, that whole period just runs together. But my right lung ended up collapsing, and they inserted one tube. It wouldn't bring it up. Two tubes didn't bring it up. So at one time I had 3 tubes in, all at the same time.
Dang.
Well, yeah,
Go
3
ahead.
tubes, and meanwhile you're feeling like you're drowning, or
Completely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could lean over, so I'm attached to the wall with the little box and the measuring table on it, and a vacuum to the wall, and you can lean over and you can feel the liquid in there run to the top, or you could sit up and you could feel it run to the bottom. And so I knew, like, I knew that feeling. And now later in life, I feel as if I'm very in tune with my body and what it's telling me, and a feeling of pain that's internal, as opposed to, kind of on the outside. As I since then I've had some heart issues, but had ended up having 8 chest tubes, had a rib removed on my right side. They went in and scraped the outside of the lung to get the scar tissue off and get everything to go back and seal up like it was supposed to. After that, my doctor, Dr. Houston Holmes, comes in. They had done a PET scan and said, we've treated you with this chemo, but what we've done didn't fix you. But for some reason, there's nothing there. It's gone. There's scar tissue there. The tumor is gone. And he said, "I know your mom prayed a lot, and I think she's got a direct line to the man upstairs." And
I love
well,
it.
Anyone who has met your mother, I think, understands that.
Without a doubt. Everybody at the racetrack calls her Mama Kay for a reason.
Yes.
So what did he mean when he said the chemo didn't fix you, but it's gone? Can you explain that a little bit more? How did they know that the chemo didn't fix you if the tumor was gone?
He personally said he didn't think that was enough treatment to make any significant change. And with the troubles that I had, he said, this is going to kill you. Like, we can't continue to treat you with this. Your body is not taking it. And I probably weighed 140 pounds when I was in high school. I weighed 98 pounds at my lightest. I mean, the biggest thing on me was my head, my elbows, and my knee. I was a bag of bones. I couldn't walk around the nurse station in the center of the hospital. I had no energy, no stamina. But this is my perception of what he said, is he just believed that what he did wouldn't make that much difference in that amount of time. And I don't know.
So that for the type of tumor and cancer you had. So you had lymphoma, correct?
Hodgkin's lymphoma.
It was Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yeah, so there's well-established protocols. I mean,
Right.
We've been treating Hodgkin's successfully for decades now. So that makes sense.
Right.
They go, okay, if you need, like, let's just use numbers for instance, if you need 100 units of X, Y, and Z. And we only gave you 40 units. It really shouldn't have done anything. But we know if we gave you the actual 100 units, it would kill you because you reacted so poorly to the 40.
Correct.
Units.
And so we ended up I did 7 weeks of radiation. And as you guys well know, radiation back then is nothing like radiation now. Now it's like a laser beam, and back then it was like the fire hose or the shotgun. Mm-hmm. So that's been the thing that I've had to deal with over the last 20 years is just complications from that. I've continuously, I would say, had issues with blood clots. 2016, in the gym working out with a very attractive trainer, and so I'm going to be the tough guy and not let her know that I'm not doing well, but I'm going man down here. So I finished the workout, and I'm thinking, man, I'm just like really beaten, my shoulders hurting, and I'm sweating, like my legs are sweating. I'm sweating places that you don't sweat. And so I go in there and I take a shower, and I'm going to go back to work because I would go to the gym at lunch. I get in my car and or my truck, and I'm gonna head back to the office. And I think, man, I can't make it. Like I'm not gonna make it back. So I'm just gonna go to the house and lay down for a little bit, and maybe I'll feel better. And I go within a half a mile of the hospital, the same hospital that I went to with cancer the first time. And I go in there, and it's since become one of the better hospitals in our area. And when I go to check in, the lady goes, well, I need you to sign these papers. I said, ma'am, I can't feel either one of my hands. My chest is hurting extremely bad, and I feel like I'm going to throw up. And so that, whatever that meant, got her attention quickly.
Yeah, we know what that means.
So this guy comes through with a wheelchair big enough to put a car in. And I said, no, man, I'm good. I'll walk. He goes, no, sir, you're not going to walk. You're going to sit in this wheelchair. And he was a big guy. I said, you got it. I'm sitting right in that wheelchair. And so he wheeled me back and went through hours of testing. And the lady comes back in there not long after I'd gotten put in the emergency room, and wants me to sign those papers again. And during that time, I'm hooked to the EKG machine, and I'm trying to sign this paper, and everything happens again. That same exact crushing my chest. My arm feels like it's exploding at the elbow and sweating everywhere. And I told her, I said, you got to get somebody in here to help me now. Like I'm in bad shape. And kept continuing to run tests, and it just went away. They gave me the little silver tabs. Tell me what they are.
Nitroglycerin.
Nitroglycerin.
I put those under my tongue. She goes, you're either going to feel better right now or you're going to have a really bad headache. And I said, I feel better right now. But my mouth was so dry that it wouldn't dissolve. So I chewed the first one up, and she kind of got mad at me. But
Yeah.
I needed some help. I said, you just give me that bottle. I'll eat them all.
I'll just down the whole.
Hey, look, nitro is my life, all right? Like I'm an expert in it.
So ended up, I had a massive clot in the LAD. Left
Oh, that's
LAD.
not good.
Left anterior descending artery.
The Widowmaker is
Yes.
what they call that one.
That's what they called it. And so they went in, removed the clot, placed a stent, and I got out in a couple of days. So I was absolutely bound and determined to go racing that weekend. And this happened on a Wednesday. And I said, I'm good, guys. We're going racing. Well, they told me that the little plug that they put in around your groin where they'd went in to do it, they said, you need to let that heal up for at least a week before we go drive that race car. And I was like, I'm not doing a whole lot. I'm just pushing the gas. I'll be all right. And he goes, let me tell you something.
Oh.
If that thing goes to leaking, you got about 30 seconds to get it stopped. I said, you're okay. I'm not going to go.
Right. I just pushed the gas pedal on an 11,000 horsepower guided missile that pulls 3.5 Gs at half track and 6 Gs at parachute opening. Other than that, I'm watching TV.
Yeah, I told him, I said, I trust those guys to clean up the oil, the parts that I blow up, all the stuff on the track. The safety safari is the best, but I don't want them to be trying to pick up my blood and put it back in. I mean, we don't. That's where I'm going to call it quits on that one.
Absolutely. Wow. So,
how many years after your diagnosis and treatment for your lymphoma did that event with the
15 years
clot happen? 15 years.
wow.
And that was the first major medical event happened?
Yes.
After that?
And so I have been going to my checkup every year since. After I think it was 5 years, they told me I could go a little longer, and I have a pretty good relationship with my oncologist. He's really been my go-to doctor since all of that. So I just said, look, I like to see you every year, and so I'll just come back and get checked out. And it's really special because I was 17 when all this happened, and I think he was in his late 30s maybe. And so we've watched each other evolve. I mean, the last time I went and saw him I have a child now, and so and he's completely gray-headed now. So and I'm working on being bald. So we're evolving, but he kind of not really, but assuringly said, we knew stuff like this was going to happen because of the radiation, because of the things that we did. We don't know the real effects of that, because I remember they made a plastic mask and they put tattoos on my side, my chest, for the lasers from the radiation machine, and the window where they had it blocked was just lead pucks in there, and so that's what stopped where the radiation wouldn't go, and then everything else just got blasted, and my stomach hurt and was raw, my throat, my mouth, everything was just burned, and he goes, we don't even remotely do that, and we know that we can get away with so much less now than what we did to you, and so now you're going to have to deal with those effects. But it's better than the alternative. So
sure.
Well, right. You're still here. I mean, exactly.
So how did this? I'm probably taking the words out of my wife's mouth, but so how did this change? These experiences change your perspective on life going forward. We interviewed somebody a week or so ago, Rick Dancer, just an outstanding interview. And he said, if you really want to meet the most interesting, toughest people in the world, talk to cancer survivors.
without a doubt. And, like I said, at that time, any funeral, anybody that had passed away that I knew personally, it was cancer. So I had my perception of it was that it just kills you. And going through that at a young age, I was probably as hard-headed as I needed to be, if not more, and just resilient. You have youth, and you have your strength and your body on your side, but you also just have the hard-headedness of, I'm not going to let it kill me. And going through that, and then coming out of it, it was very mixed emotions for me, because some of the most near and dear people didn't make it, and I did, and so I held a little bit of guilt, where I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to be known as Steve Torrence, the cancer survivor. I didn't want that to identify me. And being older and more mature and looking back on it, I've used that platform to help other families, and to help kids that maybe are not dealing with cancer but are dealing with some type of illness, and it's easier to listen to someone that has been in a situation that way. Like, you can always listen to somebody that has experience better than you can somebody just telling you something they think. And so I've used that to motivate me, to fuel me, but it changes your perception of life, because I've experienced 3 different scenarios in my life. That one with cancer, the heart attack, and then I had another issue a couple years ago with my heart. My pulmonary artery was 98% blocked with a clot, and I had more clots in my lungs. And so when I was 17, you think you're sick, you're going to continue to get sick, and it's going to get worse, and that's how you die. And then you have this heart attack, and you realize that it can just you're just 1 second away from dying. And so it's 2 different ends of the spectrum as far as how you're mentally prepared for what's about to happen, because that thing quits beating, you don't make it very much longer. And so I that one, the heart attack, really changed the way that I looked at it. And then I think it was 19, I was at a team roping. So I do all kinds of competitive stuff, but I was at a team roping with some friends and picking up a gate and moved it probably 30 feet. And I was completely out of breath. I couldn't breathe, couldn't catch my breath. And I'd been noticing that I was, feeling winded, but not that bad. And I thought I was going to pass out. Ended up going to the hospital, and they admitted me that day, put me in, and I'm in my room, talking to my mom and my dad and my wife, and here comes 2 nurses in, and they're like, "Well, we're here for you to go to surgery." So, well, no, my name's Steve Torrence. Like, you got to check my bracelet here. You're getting somebody else. And they said, "No, we're here for you." And so they told me what was going on, and they went in and went through my neck, down into my heart, I guess, or down into the pulmonary artery, and teed off, and started administering TPA immediately. And so I stayed in ICU for a week for that, and dissolved the clots for the most part, enough to get out of there. I had internal bleeding with that. It was leaking. I think they put a blood pressure in the groin, and then they were going in through my neck to administer the TPA, and all that leaked and inside, and all the things that he told me that we were getting away from by doing it that way, still happened. And he goes, I had told him, I said, all the bad stuff that you tell me is going to happen to me. That's just how this goes.
You must be medical. You must be but medical at heart.
That's exactly right.
And so I actually I've developed a friendship with that doctor as well. And you can check me on this, but I believe that his name is Dr. David Jayakar, and I believe he's the doctor that developed that procedure to go in and directly administer it on the clot.
Ah, fascinating. Yeah, we'll look that up, because I can't remember who it is, but I know that's definitely know about that newer procedure to do it that way. Drip
And
it
so
right in there. Yeah.
And he said, it significantly reduces the chance of brain bleed or eye bleed or any of that. And so I said, well, if there's going to be any complications, it's definitely going to happen to Steve Torrence. And I've developed a friendship with him, so he keeps up with the racing, and if anything goes wrong or I feel anything out of the norm, I just call him and say, Dr. J, I got to come get checked out. And he's always there. I mean, you guys are in the profession of healing people, but that little bond that you have with your patients and your doctor is truly special, because sometimes you're just not another number,
Totally.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've done this long enough now that we've actually hired people that I've delivered.
It's kind of creepy in a way.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry if I've been rambling.
Oh, not at all. This has been really,
you've
really
it's
insightful.
perfect. We didn't want to interrupt because the narrative is awesome. So you, with all these clots and this issue of potential clotting, are you on maintenance blood thinners? Can I ask that?
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was
Yeah,
going
we
to
don't
say,
want to we don't want to get you in trouble with the NHRA.
Right.
So,
I
I
Dr.
mean,
J
we
said
just
I take Eliquis, and Dr. J said it was okay. He approved me for that. And it's I've had no issues with it whatsoever.
yeah, I mean,
right. I mean, obviously, we know the hazards, the clotting, what you do to prevent that, and so I'm thinking in your line of work, if you're
a lot better than
one
Coumadin.
accident away from bleeding, I mean, just there's the risk of having
There is, but it's
something
not like
happen.
it's
Right.
not like a contact sport. You know,
True.
I've never had any type of bruising from the car with tire shake or even through the wreck that I had. I had a wreck in 17. So all of that has not affected me.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I have taken the Lovenox and the Coumadin, and this is, to me, the Eliquis is so much different. Anytime I would cut myself or nick myself shaving or whatever with the other two, it was uncontrollable, just like red water coming out everywhere. And this it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done genetic testing, I guess, to see if it's some type of clotting issue with me, and they haven't found anything. They don't know what it is.
So it's obviously it's some kind of side effect from the radiation
that would be
caused some, probably, I'm guessing that it's caused some irregularity in the vasculature that now.
Yeah, usually with clotting like that, I had a very similar patient who was in his mid-20s who had a spontaneous clot in his coronary artery, which is very unusual for somebody that age. And so he had a hypercoagulable diathesis, like a blood issue before.
In layman's terms, for people that aren't medical,
yeah.
basically,
So
problem with his blood that wants to clot.
Right, and so usually you find that if it's that obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's a really obvious problem in a young
right.
person.
And they've looked for that, and they actually told me early in the year in 20, I didn't have to take the Eliquis anymore. They said you don't have to take this. You're good, and that's been my decision to continue, just simply for the fact that taking that pill once a day is really easy, and if it'll help me to not have those problems anymore.
Well, so yeah, I was gonna say, with all that you've gone through, and then the heart attack, and then this, I mean, what's it like? I guess now that you're taking the Eliquis, it's kind of like your insurance package, reassurance package in a way, right? To your brain. But do you live in fear in the back of your mind of what's going to happen next? Are you going to have any, more of these? Any bleeding? Is it going to recur? Like, what's that like psychologically?
Not anymore. For the longest after having cancer, I did. It was the most dreadful thing to go do a yearly checkup or to go do a 6-month checkup, because even if you'd felt fine for every day up until that point, if your toe felt funny that morning, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? What could this be? And so I dreaded that. And I've been able to just say, hey, I want to continue to live and be healthy, but I'm not going to worry about it. I mean, God has blessed me tremendously throughout my life with everything. And the only time we kind of ventured off a minute ago. The only time I've ever really thought I was dying was this recent deal with the artery, and it's just part of it. Every one of us are going to do it. I don't want to do it any sooner than I need to, but we're all gonna get out of here someday. And so I live pretty wide open and full. I enjoy everything I do. My mom and dad both, and my wife tell me I need to slow down, but and I'm at the drag races on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm at work Monday through Thursday. If I have a weekend off, we have a place in South Texas. I go hang out there, and it's a big ranch where we hunt and fish, and I go there and work, and that's my place to relax. But you're working the whole time. It's just, you can rest when you're dead. You can live while you're alive. And so I've approached it that way. And I don't, there's so much to do and see and experience and enjoy. I don't want to miss any of it. And so maybe those things I've gone through have made me more that way, to just constantly be going and doing. And life is short, and you don't realize it until you look, like, you think you're at the end of it. And so you want to get as much packed into it as possible, all the while helping somebody else and influencing somebody else. Did that answer your question? Or no?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have been just stunned with the amount of fear that people have let grip their lives in the last year and a half. And it really is refreshing. And this is part of the reason why we really wanted you to share your story, because it's so overwhelmingly positive. I mean, you came from this, I'm going to die at 17, I'm 90 pounds, to 4 world championships in one of the most extreme sports in the world in a row. And that didn't happen by accident. I mean, and it happened on purpose. It happened because you decided you were going to live your life, and you were going to live it to the fullest, because no one gets out of here alive. So I'm going to live it while I got the chance. And that's kind of the message we want to get out to people. I mean, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's political upheaval, whether it's war, whether it's whatever, you still got to live your freaking life, man.
Without
we can't
a
let
doubt.
this stuff own us. And so it's
quick little deal, and I'll tell you that you'll get a laugh out of. Was it the pulmonary artery was blocked? They were administering the TPA, and I kept telling them my stomach was getting distended. It was hurting. I couldn't touch it, and I kept and I think it was a blood pressure monitor or something in my groin, in the artery there. And I kept telling the nurses, I said, you got to talk to Dr. J. You got to tell him we have to stop this. I feel like I'm bleeding inside and I'm leaking. No, you're fine. You're fine. It's just filtrating out, and you're good. Well, the same thing is happening on my neck and my head and my shoulder. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm leaking somewhere. Like, this is filling up. So they come in and they put a catheter in, and I'm like, I don't have to pee. I'm telling you, my stomach. I couldn't touch my stomach. Like, you couldn't touch your skin. It hurt to touch. So she comes in and she's going to apply pressure and push it. I guess push the blood out, disperse the blood from around my neck and right here I'm at my groin and above my leg and my stomach. And I'm laying back in the bed, and I told her, I said, ma'am, you cannot push on my stomach. I'm telling you, you can't. She goes, yeah, I have to, and we'll be fine. The next thing I know is I'm sitting up in the bed, and that lady is holding me, and my mom is shaking me, going, Steve. And I'm looking around, and I don't know what's going on, but there's sirens going off. I look at the foot of my bed. There is a tool cart at the foot of my bed, a red
yeah,
cart.
we know what that is.
Yes,
it's
the crash cart.
The tool cart.
Yeah.
I love it. The tool cart.
And maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I swore it said Snap-on on it.
It probably did, actually.
Yeah.
And so
His hospitals, they buy the best, right?
So I'm sponsored by Mac Tools, and so I'm looking
Okay,
at
I'm
this
sorry, second
Snap-on.
best.
I'm looking at this tool cart, and I said, what are y'all doing with that thing? And she said, well, you coded, and we were gonna use it. And I said, well, why don't y'all have a Mac Tools card instead?
I love it.
Exactly. Make you and Antron happy.
Well, he's got Matco, so I mean, he wouldn't have been happy either.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
That's
funny.
right.
But that of that entire situation, that's what I remember the most, is they had the wrong brand of tool
The
cart.
wrong tool cart.
And I'm glad they didn't use that jump starter either.
Yeah.
No, you
No.
don't want the jump starter.
You don't want to be jump started.
That was exactly what my grandfather said. He actually coded in 1974 and was jump started and lived another almost 16 years.
It's funny because I'm more scared to jump start a car than I am to use the electric paddles, pads now at work.
Right.
Those ones for the car freak me out. Like I'm gonna blow it up or something.
Well, you can't.
Because my dad put the fear of that into me when I was a kid. Don't touch the wrong one to the grounding. You know.
I think what happened is I just passed out because it hurt so bad. But it was I knew she couldn't push on that area. It was going to be too painful. But yeah, I think I just passed out or something. They ended up stopping the TPA. And
so were you bleeding in your abdomen?
Because that's what was going on. It was just leaking inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you had what we call peritonitis, where it's irritating your abdominal, the lining of your stomach, the peritoneum, so that you can't even stand anything touching it.
Yeah. No, and blood is unbelievably irritating when it's where it's not supposed to be.
Exactly.
So, like, within a few days, my whole shoulder, my whole abdomen, my leg, around my waist, all of that turned black and purple and green. But yeah, it was kind of fancy looking. My wife took pictures of it and shows me every now and then. I tell her it hurt a lot more than it looked.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
So you definitely, I mean, I understand, and what you're saying is being definitely in tune with your body now. I mean, you've experienced these things enough that and people that are athletes too and have had a bunch of injuries, myself included, Tim. It's like when things are just off, what's like, this is just kind of a funky thing that I can push through, or this is definitely really wrong. So, yeah, you obviously are not prepared, but you know what's wrong now, and you can tell.
You went to the really crappy medical school where you have to experience it all yourself.
Yes. Diagnosis by experience. My goodness.
Yes. Wow. So, do you take any time off now that the season is over until February?
I will. So I had some stuff to do Monday morning. So we won the championship after first round, and then we were, so some of the stress goes away, and then you go back to the pit and you get ready for second round. You're like, well, heck, we got to try to win the race now. And so we ended up winning the race, and all of my guys celebrated very heavily. I would say that their blood was probably much thinner than mine by the
I love it. Great explanation. I love it.
And
that's funny.
And so I had to get up 6 o'clock Monday morning, had a photo shoot on the racetrack, and got some really amazing photos. So Pomona is there, and depending on the time of the year and the smog and all that, you can see the mountains sometimes. So the mountains were very visible. We did some photos with the sunrise coming up over the racetrack and the mountains in the background. Had a press conference with Toyota at 8:30. 9:15 we had a couple telephone calls to do, and then we flew home. I came home. I've been at work, and I'll work. My wife and my little girl stayed in California. She has family there, so they're going to spend the week, and then I'll work. And usually what we do on Thanksgiving Day is we eat with the family, and then we load up and go down to the ranch in South Texas, and we'll spend probably a week, maybe a little longer down there, and just we're 10 miles from any civilization down a dirt road, and we go hide out, and you make sure you have enough food to make it as long as you want to without going to town. You feel like an old frontiers person when you got to pack up everything to eat. Once you're there, you're there, and just get away. That's the place that I go to relax. And then you don't realize it, but time will be gone, and it'll be the end of Christmas, and now it's time to start going back out to Phoenix and testing. So between Capco and Torrance Racing, it keeps me pretty busy.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. Thank you so very much for your time. This has just been an outstanding interview. I know our listeners are going to find it incredibly entertaining and, most importantly, very, very encouraging. Where can people find you to connect with you? Social media, your business, Capco. Just where can we find you?
So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything is at Steve Torrence. Torrence is with an E, Torrence. And you can send me messages, you can comment, you can like the post, and just keep up with us. We try to do the best we can to keep everything up to live time at the racetrack, and I'm getting better about sharing some of my personal life and what's going on outside of racing on there. I've argued with my wife and told her people don't care about what we're doing other than racing, and she told me otherwise. So I've been sharing pictures of my little girl and just things that we enjoy to do. We ride horses. I have cattle. Enjoy team roping. Enjoy hunting and fishing. So just a different side of me that people don't realize at the racetrack.
Outstanding.
I love it.
Yeah, I've followed it for quite a while now, and it really is fun. I love the post you had when you took your car to Austin and had Governor Abbott sitting.
Yep.
That was cool.
So I've done some things like that in the past, and so most of the time they're not as excited as you are about what you're doing. Most people are not as enthralled with the race car, and I'd met Governor Abbott a couple different times, got recognized at the Capitol the first championship, and so he knew me and I knew him, and we go back there with the car. He comes out of the governor's mansion, he wheels down the sidewalk as fast as he can, he spins his chair around right beside the car, and he goes, "Let me in." And I was like, "Really?" So he's like, "Yeah." And so we were
awesome.
able to fire the car up with him sitting in it. When we passed a bill that brought funding to the Texas Motorplex to bring in tourists and bring in fans and attract people to the state of Texas for the races, and so he signed that bill in the car and
really
put it
neat.
into law, and it's been really a blast. I typically don't go much outside of my comfort zone of Kilgore, Texas, and home, but I've had some amazing opportunities to go and do and meet some really cool people with the success we've had through racing, and it's things like that you remember the most, but you just are reluctant to do, and then when you go do it, you're like, "Man, I'm so glad I did this."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. That makes life. Well, thank you.
We hope you enjoyed doing this interview.
Yeah, because we sure enjoyed having you. That's for sure. Our son, I won't tell you what he tweeted back to me when I told him that we had you for an interview. He's like, "That's something or other rad." So.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. I hope I didn't talk too much or bore you guys with a redundant story, but I've been very fortunate and blessed to live the life that I have, and some of the stuff I have forgotten and don't know all the facts, but I've lived it, and I've been able to help some other people and other kids, and thank you for letting me share my story and the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
All right. I was as almost excited as Tim. Sorry, I'm like bumping the rev limiter on the volume on here. But I knew who Steve Torrence was, although I didn't know all that story, and I learned a ton. And wow, that was, I think, one of almost my favorite interviews for the year. Really, that was so much fun getting to know him and having him share that. And he said, I mean, I don't know, you would probably know better because you follow all this stuff, right? But is that something you hear him publicly talk about a lot?
Not much. It's publicly known. NHRA does sort of these behind the helmet kind of bios every once in a while. And when he had really entered into the upper echelon of Top Fuel back like the 2012, 2013, they did an entire kind of bio of that. But again, it's like 5 or 10 minutes. It's not an hour of him going, okay, this is how it felt. I mean, this is how much I weighed. These are the medical complications.
Right.
I mean, and again, that's the joy of podcasts, right? It's the ability to, drive someplace and listen to a program and really, kind of get behind the veil of what's going on. And we really appreciate him doing that. And honestly, I found this really moving. Like the last 18 months, the last 2 years has been so difficult, especially if you work anywhere remotely near the medical world, to actually hear encouraging stories of people coming through the most horrific traumas you can comprehend. Like, a week ago talking to Rick Dancer and how he's like, Rick Dancer died, the new Rick Dancer's a better version. And then to hear Steve say, I was never going to let anything get in the way of me living the fullest life I can. And the guy, you thought I had a lot of hobbies. He has 2 full-time jobs. He's got the racing team. There's Capco Contractors, which, him and his father run, which is a wildly successful business. And then he's an expert distance shooter. He has the team roping stuff that he does. He runs a ranch. He has his own cattle. So it's actually like a working ranch.
You should be his spokesperson.
And so this is somebody who hasn't let, any one of those diagnoses can be a crushing blow, and you can sit there in your mom's basement and play video games for the rest of your life. And he chose not to do it. And I think we need to hear that there's hope.
I think that's
keep going.
Really cool about last week and this week, and that's the whole thing. Not just focusing on cancer, which we are, but also showing that you can persevere. You can. These people are really changing their lives and growing because of what they've been through, and living life to the fullest because of that. And it's just so positive. And what's going on in the world right now can seem so depressing.
Well, yeah, and I think I have very briefly met Steve's parents, and clearly they're another piece to this puzzle. Just amazing, caring people. Because this is a 17-year-old boy when all of this started, and to produce a man of that character. It didn't happen by accident either. That wasn't a kid that was just, given a video console and all the candy he could eat. So, really positive stuff. Life doesn't happen by accident, but accidents happen to us, and it's how we deal with them, determines on how great a life that we have and the fulfillment we have. And again, as Steve was saying, to be able to take these experiences and reach out and to help other people. And that's why we're here as well. So just I cannot say enough about how much fun and how positive that was.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Steve, so much for that. And thanks to our sponsor again this week, which is Locum Story. Remember, for doctors, the story has changed. Visit financialresidency.com/locum story to see if a locum tenens assignment is right for you. It's here you'll find the unbiased answers you are after, so you can decide if locum tenens is your next chapter. Check out our show notes. I have all the links to Steve's information, as well as where you can find him on social media. And hang around for what were you going to say?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I said, if what we discussed today does not make you at least a little bit curious about NHRA drag racing and at least somewhat of a fan of Steve Torrence, you are now dead to me.
Yeah. That would be the truth. On that note, next week's Thanksgiving podcast drops on Thanksgiving Day. We are going to bring you a fun Doc Tales episode. Keep it light and fun, and maybe ruin your Thanksgiving dinner
Yes,
with
we're
what we
gonna-
got planned.
Yeah, we're going to dive into probably all the different things that could kill you on Thanksgiving.
Sounds really positive, Tim.
That's what I do. But, when we're drinking, then that's the positive part. So, all right, we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
While we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible, we can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com. Our guest today is going to blow your mind. This is a story of depth that I had no idea was there. My son and I have been pretty big fans of him as a top fuel race car driver for really about a decade, from essentially when he arrived on the scene.
I thought you weren't going to introduce the guest until you were going to make them listen. We talked about this.
Okay, so I'll do
you
it
can't
different.
give it away.
All right, I guess I'm starting over again. Bitch be like.
I'm sorry, I probably blew his ear off with that. Bitch be like. You need to watch, what's their names again? Those two comedians.
Which two comedians?
Oh, the ones that are like, I called a bitch.
Oh yeah, that's but I actually do it. That's Key and Peele.
Yeah, well, you Key and Peele right on out of here.
Yeah, I can Key and Peele right out of here. Okay, so here we go.
3, 2, 1.